Okay, so we are live. So first off, how are you, Valerie?
I am doing great. Got no complaints.
Good, good, good,
Summer's,
good, good.
you know how summer is, fast and furious, and I'm looking forward to
Absolutely,
fall.
absolutely. It's
What
what
about
is that
you?
your favorite season?
Fall?
Yeah.
Yeah, spring and fall.
Interesting. Okay, okay,
I
okay.
love when
You're
things
probably the
die.
first. Yeah.
I love when things die and then be born again.
Fair, fair. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. Okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Like what I know that you do Reiki, right? How long have you been
Mhm.
doing Reiki for?
I have started my Reiki practice a year now.
Mm-hmm.
A year
Oh,
now.
okay, okay. Yeah. And you did it with Tamea? Like did you got certified through
Yes,
her?
I got certified through
Okay.
Tamea. Yes,
Awesome.
you know how the world works. You get aligned.
Yeah.
I met her
Mhm.
randomly at the same time as you. When I had met you, it was the
Mhm.
same time I met her. I don't even know how I came across to your workshop, to be quite
Mhm.
honest, but it
Mhm.
popped up and I saw the two of you and I was like, I'm going.
Oh, interesting. I thought you knew Tamea and had already done your Reiki practice well before that.
No,
Oh.
no. But deep down inside, I feel like an OG, yes.
Well, yeah, it feel like just based on the stuff that you post, I mean, you seem to have really gravitated to the whole Reiki thing, so that's really interesting.
Yes,
You seem like a
yes.
veteran in the game, so
I
yeah, that's
feel like
interesting.
one. My
Wow,
experience
wow.
makes me feel like one.
That's awesome. That's
My
awesome.
life
So, like,
experience, yeah.
what were you doing before Reiki? Like, what was your?
Before Reiki, I was just a mom
Mm-hmm,
working lots, sometimes 6 days a week. Like, and I don't want to say
mm-hmm,
just a mom, but I was just the
yeah,
typical mom running around, work, bringing her kids to soccer, bringing them to
mm-hmm,
movies, fitting in the gym. And, at home, I'll be quite honest,
mm-hmm,
wasn't the best situation marriage
mm-hmm,
wise. So I
mm-hmm,
kept myself busy to not be at home.
mm-hmm,
So that was my life pre
mm-hmm.
Reiki. And
Ah,
then
okay.
there was right before pre Reiki, the
The explosion, huh?
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
So, what was it that led you or gravitated you to getting into Reiki? Like, what was that tipping point for you?
What I really liked about it was I know that when I was going through my healing process,
Mm-hmm,
therapy and counseling was always brought up, but I just
mm-hmm,
wasn't ready for like I
mm-hmm,
just was not ready to open up. I was not ready
mm-hmm,
to open those doors. I just didn't want to
mm-hmm,
rehash everything. What I
mm-hmm,
loved about Reiki was I was able to just, as the client, just lay there and just surrender and have
mm-hmm,
someone do the Reiki on me. And then
mm-hmm,
afterwards, if I chose to talk, I chose to talk. If I didn't,
mm-hmm,
the practitioner would just speak with me. And what I realized with more Reiki sessions, it was opening me. I was more open to
mm-hmm.
discussing and to go through the process of therapy and counseling. I find Reiki just opens you.
Mm-hmm. And for anyone who actually doesn't know or is not familiar with what Reiki is per se, because there's I find that there's still quite a bit of skepticism in terms of what Reiki is. So how would you define it, and how would you kind of close the door on some of those skeptics?
Well, first off, Reiki is very, very simple. You got to
Mm-hmm.
remove what you think is very woo woo-ish about it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's actually very simple. Everything around you is energy. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter what you believe in, what religion. Everything
Mm-hmm.
around you is energy. Every experience, every
Mm-hmm.
person you connect with. So I feel like you're always left with an impression, kind of like
Mm-hmm.
dust on a shelf. Whenever you
Yeah.
meet someone, you go through something, you have trauma, the dust just stays on there, but it
Mm-hmm.
never gets properly cleaned.
Mm-hmm.
Reiki is just the good energy that just sweeps off the dust,
Mm-hmm.
sweeps it off, and then now you have a blank shelf, and now
Yeah.
you can add what you want on that shelf. Want a couple of fitness books?
Ah.
Put that on there. Want to put a cute crystal? You put that on there. You want to put a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful photo? You put that
Mm-hmm.
on there. And that's what basic, it's very simple. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's the good energy that just helps sweep the dust, off your
I
dusty
love
shelves.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, like my first introduction to Reiki, I have to admit I was very very skeptical at first, and my an ex girlfriend of mine, she actually convinced me to do a session because again I you know I thought like this was before I was even well versed in like spirituality and all that stuff, and so I thought it was one of like the fortune teller bullshit type stuff or whatever, and I'm going in there and I'm just kind of like okay, let's get this over with or whatever, and she sits me on like the Reiki practitioner sits me on the table. And this wasn't Tamea, this was like someone else, right? And so sits me on the table and just kind of starts asking me questions. She's kind of like, telling me a little bit about Reiki and how it's like, it's not, she's like, I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not here to, do anything of that nature or anything or impress you or do anything fantastical. It's basically, I'm just reading your energy, kind of like what you were just saying, right? And so she starts doing her thing, the hand gestures and whatnot, and she gets down to my feet and she's like, "You have you have something going on currently with I'm sensing it's either your mother or your grandmother." And at the time I was. And then she started like kind of getting a little bit deeper and she's like, "Again, I don't know what the situation is. I'm just reading the energy." And from there I was like, I almost felt like I got emotional. I was like, "Oh shit, like she's tapping into some like real heavy, hard hitting stuff." And so at that point I that was like my turning point and I became a believer. And then I met Tamea and she was like certifying people. So I was like, okay, you know what, let me jump on this and, see what this is all about. So yeah, Reiki is kind of I'll admit I haven't really practiced it a whole lot since getting certified, but it's definitely something I want to delve back into because I do see the value in it. So how has Reiki kind of changed your life in that regard in terms of like since you've been practicing?
Oh, it has changed me immensely.
Mm-hmm.
Reiki is just, how can I describe it? How has it changed my life? Reiki allows me to be the best version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
It just balances me if I'm being too hype up and being too
Mm-hmm.
ratchet, which I love to be. The
Yeah.
Reiki just kind of like, hold on a second, come back,
Yeah.
come back. Like, like you don't need to cuss that much. You can cuss a little. And so that's what, that's Reiki just centers me.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
I
awesome.
feel all the clients that after their session they're like, I just feel more centered and grounded.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm-hmm.
to say that life doesn't happen, but
Mm-hmm.
you just become more trusting of yourself
Mm-hmm.
and what's going to happen around you. That's how it's changed my life. I'm just more centered, grounded,
Mm-hmm.
calm,
Mm-hmm.
focused.
Yeah. That's good. That's really good. I like that. I like that. And how do you use it in your everyday life in terms of like do you have any like morning rituals that you do in terms of manifestation and things of that nature?
Yeah, so my morning routine, I like to start it super early. The
Mhm.
world is quiet, the house is quiet, and
Yeah.
I always start it. I've noticed after I walk my dog, my heart
Mhm.
is more open in my journaling. So I'll just do a quick
Mm.
gratitude journal, and
Mhm.
at that moment I'll give myself a little bit of a Reiki. I'll Reiki
Mhm.
the words that I
Mhm.
have written, and my day starts after that. And sometimes that session is a
Mhm.
15-minute writing session.
Mhm.
Sometimes it goes to 45 minutes to an hour. It all depends. I just let it flow, right? I wake up
Mhm.
early on purpose so that I'm
Mhm.
not looking at the time. Say if I'm totally in flow with writing and my
Mhm.
emotions and feeling the Reiki, I don't
Mhm.
want to be looking at the time and say, ugh, I gotta go. So
Yeah.
that's my morning routine. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Now you mentioned a very key word that I often use very heavily, flow, right?
Yes.
So as you can see in the background there, flow.
Yes, sir.
So how would you define flow in your own words?
Flow is the fluid motion of life, of your activities, of
Mm-hmm.
how you give energy and receive.
Mm-hmm.
It's should be fluid.
Interesting. I like that.
If that makes sense, yeah.
I no, it definitely does. I like that. I for me it's always about that balance of energy, right? Whether you call it masculine versus feminine energy or just energy in general. Like what you were saying before, like everything is energy. Everything is connected through energy. And the way I define energy per se is like, you know, information that vibrates, right? We all vibrate at different frequencies, and it's all about balancing, you know, creating that fluid motion, like you were saying, like that balance of, you know, opposing forces coming together and in unity, almost like two sides of the same coin. Yeah,
Agreed.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Be like
how do
water, my
you
friend.
exactly? Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. How do you how do you how does flow show up in your life, like currently?
Flow, like my daily activities.
Yeah, just in general, like whether it's daily activities, whether it's in work, like how do you find flow? Like when you're out of alignment, when there's that balance, when you're in a situation where you don't feel quite as fluid, like how do you realign yourself to find that flow again, especially now in the
The,
wake of everything that's happening right now?
the most important part to find flow is first to press pause. You got to press pause first in order to notice that you need to flow. How
Mm-hmm.
can you know that you need to flow if you're in a constant state of going
Mm-hmm.
or you're too rigid? So
Mm-hmm.
I love to take pauses through my day, my
Mm-hmm.
week, my month, and just reflect like, how has my workouts been? Have I been only banging out only weights for the past
Mm-hmm.
5 days? If I have,
Mm-hmm.
I got to throw in some yoga. I got to throw in some Zumba. I have to throw in when's the last time I meditated? When's the last time I
Mm-hmm.
did breath work? So for me, it's aware, pressing pause and then being
Mm-hmm.
honest and aware. That's how I find flow. When I have those months that I'm going, there is no flow. By the
Mm-hmm.
end of the month, I'm like, okay, like that, I have my own little checklist of like, did I
Mm-hmm.
dance? Did I do salsa? Did I
Mm-hmm.
yoga? Did I take a day off to just sleep in?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the need to press pause and reevaluate. I
Mm-hmm.
had mentioned I love being an early bird,
Mm-hmm.
but for the way I find flow in that, I also give myself days where I sleep in.
Mm-hmm.
I can't always be the early bird because then there's no flow there.
Right.
I am taking away the rest that my body probably needs.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, pressing pause allows me to find that flow in life. And I feel if anyone presses pause and just a quick reflection, you'll
Mm-hmm.
find the flow because you'll realize, you'll tell yourself what you've been missing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't press pause, you'll never know what's missing in order to find that flow and that balance.
That's very interesting that you say that, because as you were talking, like it's kind of like it kind of hit me. It's like, you know how we're like sometimes we're so fixated on like creating routines and being like very regimented, and on one side of the spectrum, when you have a routine, it allows you to have this consistent flow where you kind of know how your day is gonna go, and it keeps you aligned. But then it almost becomes too rigid and too structured in a way where it feels inauthentic, or like it doesn't feel organic, right? And so sometimes you need to kind of break out of routine, break out of those rituals to avoid the mundane. I'm very much like, for me, I'm a very regimented person. I like creating a to-do list, and like I like having a schedule, but like I I find that whenever I break out of that routine, I get depressed, or I get like really down on myself, because I'm like, ah, man, I'm like a all or nothing type of person, where it's like, if, let's say for example, I plan on going to bed every day at like 10 p.m., right? And then one day like I get sidetracked and I end up going to bed at 12, and this is like on like a Wednesday night, my whole week is ruined. It's like, I might as well just stay up every, like, I'm that type of person, and I'm working on it for sure. But I realize that it's okay. Like when you were talking to me about that, like I realize that it's okay to kind of break routine sometimes. Sometimes, like when you're too rigid, there is no way for you to flow through life. And so sometimes, like, there's certain things that you just can't control, and so you kind of just have to let things be and just kind of, you know, go with it, right? Go with the flow, essentially.
Yeah,
So
go with the flow.
yeah,
And sometimes
yeah.
when you're too rigid, there's a saying, I can't remember, but the wind came by and the tree
Hmm.
that bends survives the wind as opposed to the tree that's rigid will snap in half or something like
Yeah,
that.
right,
Something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Something like that.
And that's totally how I feel sometimes, where it's like I'm not I'm not bending with the wind. I'm trying to force and stay really rigid until the point where I break. I sometimes, if I'm too rigid, then I reach that point of like burnout a lot of the times.
Yes.
Ironically, considering the fact that I am so regimented, but sometimes I just, even with like workouts, like sometimes like I have structure, but then other times I'm like, I'm kind of bored of this routine. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit, and I like give leeway to kind of add my own little twist on it whenever I feel
Yes.
things are getting too mundane. So
I was
yeah, I think
never
that's a
like this
good.
though. I was just like you,
Very,
rigid every day.
yeah.
4:41 I woke up, sometimes even without an alarm. Like,
Really.
and I was so like, okay, I'm gonna do this workout on this day, and this, like, everything was so, and it was okay. It was okay. And I thought I was enjoying life then, but there's a different type of joy now that I'm flowing. There's a different
Yeah.
life just tastes a little better. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you on that for sure. Was that because of the Reiki, or was that because of like other circumstances in your life?
Reiki, healing, accepting things for how they are. But I
Yeah.
think Reiki was the big turning point for me.
Okay. Okay. So I was doing a deep dive, just to switch gears a little bit. I was doing a deep dive on your Instagram, and there was one video that you made that really struck a chord with me in a good way, and it kind of made me reflect on my own shit. But you were talking about forgiveness, and it was to the effect of letting go of the debt, I believe it was,
Yes.
something to that effect. And yeah, it was very interesting. Do you care to elaborate on it a little bit?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
So,
yeah.
to elaborate on why I refer to forgiving someone as in letting go of a debt. So let's just say you had done something to really upset me, and now I can't forgive you, but I feel like, okay, you owe me, like, you owe me. And life is a year past, 2 years past, 3 years, and I'm not forgiving you. I'm like, pay up. Every time I see you, it's like, pay up. Every time I hear about your name, motherfucker, better pay up. Like, and after some time, you're like, okay, well, he ain't paying. So what are you going to do now? Are you going to, I'm so focused on making sure you're paying me off, paying that debt, that I'm not even focusing on the other people that don't even owe me anything and want to give me something. So you got to let go of that debt sometimes, because it's not going to get paid. It's like you can be a collection call and keep calling and keep asking for that forgiveness and or for that apology,
Yeah.
but it's not coming.
Yeah.
So you got to forgive in order to let go of it. Forgive your, it's split the words up.
Yeah.
You're forgiving his debt to you because he ain't paying. No matter how many times you can tell someone, this is what you did, I can't believe you did this, and that's not the way you apologize. And if you were truly sorry, you would do A, B, C, and D. For whatever reason, and so it's not for you to know, they don't want to pay up. So you got to let go of that debt. And I find sometimes people will pay their debts in a currency that you might not be accepting. Everyone has different love languages. So I'll give you an example for my mom. Love her, love her, love her. But we had our stuff. And for a long time, she did me really dirty, something unforgivable. And slowly she was trying to, I guess you could say, pay off her debt. But her way of paying off her debt was monetary items. That's her love language. And for me, I didn't want that. So the more that now I'm put in a place, am I going to accept that currency
Mm.
and exchange it? I got to do the hard work and exchange it and accept it,
Right.
or am I going to reject her currency? Do
Mm.
you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Not
yeah, yeah.
everyone is going to pay you the way you want.
Right. Right.
So you got to decide to just cut off that debt and say bye.
So going back, I love that you're using the currency as an example or an analogy, and also throwing the love languages in there. So going back to that specifically, let's say that you have a person who like is sorry, is it more so a matter of if the person understands the love language, or taking the time to understand your love language, and rather than paying in a way that is foreign to you or not acceptable, they actually take the time, learn your love language, and then pay you in the right way. Is that is that an acceptable form of currency where you can be like, okay, I can accept this, I can learn to let it go? Or does it get to a point where the damage is so severe that there is no amount of currency that can repay that debt, essentially?
So only you can define that. Only that's what I meant by you got to decide if you want to be the currency exchange person. Because now that works on you now to decide if you are willing to accept their form of payment to forgive their debt. So every situation's different, and that's where you got to take an honest look with yourself. I'll give you an example. My ex did me dirty, and his way of paying off his debt, it just wasn't working with me. And I kept telling, pay up, pay up. I kept saying, if you're sorry, this is how you should act. This is how you should be. I will never forgive you for cheating on me. I would never, like, you got to do this, you got to do that. And he was trying to pay off his debt. And after a while, I realized that for him, no matter how much he paid me, even if he was willing to pay me back in the currency that my bank, which is my heart accepted, there was just, it was very clear that transaction it needs to be voided. It's done.
Right.
It's over.
Right.
So every situation is different. However, with my mom, I didn't need her to change her currency. I accepted that is her form of payment, and I'll take it. But I'm
Right.
just not going to be so invested in her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, to quote you, I think you said, I forgive you, but fuck you. Not
I
saying
forgive
that
you,
yeah.
but fuck you. Bye.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. That should be put on a shirt. But
Yeah.
no, no. But I definitely see what you're saying in terms of like when when a person breaks your trust, especially if we're talking like infidelity or something of that nature, right? I mean, that is a hard pill to swallow and something that's hard to come back from. And you know, again, a lot of trust has to be rebuilt. Like once it's lost, it's very, very hard. I too, I've had not so much infidelity, but in regards to like stuff going on with my mom, and I don't have the best relationship. I don't even have a speaking relationship with my mother at the moment, and there's a lot of there's a lot of history there in terms of like things that she's done, things that she's said, especially. And I thought I could come to a place where I could forgive her. And like hearing you speak and putting it in an analogy of like currency, I realized that, I was expecting a particular currency that she just wasn't giving. She was just giving change, like chump change, like, but not really giving me like what I deserve, what I felt I deserved, and it wasn't sufficient enough, and I just couldn't bring myself to let it go, and it's still something in the process that I'm having to deal with, and having to kind of work out, and it has actually ended up being quite crippling in a lot of my like relationships, like my romantic relationship, like even currently right now in the relationship that I'm in. It these mama issues, I guess you will, would kind of like still kind of are impeding, and and affect my ability to, I want to say, almost trust fully, or like give myself fully to somebody. Um, can you relate to that in the sense of like when someone does you dirty, someone especially that's like close to you, and that like, we put our trust in, like, whether it's especially if it's a romantic relationship, you're opening your heart to somebody, and like the heart, I view as kind of like a fragile piece of glass, right? And that you're handing off to somebody and saying, here, I want, you can handle this, just don't play with it, and more importantly, don't drop it and break it, right? And when that's broken, even if you try to mend the pieces back together with super glue or whatever, you're always going to still have cracks left in that fragile piece of glass. And so for you, is it hard for you, given that you've been hurt by people that have been so close to you and are supposedly supposed to be people that love you unconditionally, and to have that being tarnished, is it hard for you to move on, or to be as giving and receiving or trusting of other people that potentially come into your lives that want to show you that same kind of unconditional love?
It actually wasn't that hard for me. I thought it would be. I really,
Mm-hmm.
really thought it would be. But the way that I looked at it was I took the lessons that I learned from the betrayal
Mm-hmm.
of my
Mm-hmm.
mom and my
Mm-hmm.
ex, and
Mm-hmm.
I use those lessons as boundaries. I use
Mm-hmm.
those lessons to, how can I say, not really build wall. I don't want to build walls that somebody needed to work so hard to break down,
Mm-hmm.
because I want to remain open.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the flow of life. How can the
Mm-hmm.
love flow in and out if I have these tall, strong walls that somebody needs to break down? So,
Mm-hmm.
the way I like to view it, the way I like to say it when people ask, like, how did you find love after being done dirty so bad? Was
Mm-hmm.
I still have boundaries. The
Mm-hmm.
doors are still there. So, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying I'm a complete open heart. The doors are still
Yeah.
there, and only the right people now have the key to unlock it. But in order to find the right people to unlock it, I gotta be able to give them a chance to even try to unlock it.
Okay.
And it's like, but if you're fumbling around with the lock for too long, bye. Again, fuck you.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Bye next, So bye.
Right. 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 Fair. Fair.
So I was, and it can sometimes be scary, but just like when you're riding a roller coaster, I was riding, what was that called? Little Leviathan. And
Okay.
I did not want to go on. I did not want to go on. And my son
You're not
kept
a
telling me,
you're not a roller coaster person.
no, I did not want to go on. And my son kept saying, you'll be fine. Like you trust yourself. You'll be fine. Just let your fears go and you'll have fun. And I was like, who made this kid? And I thought about that with life. You got to let those fears go and just go with the ride. And you can decide if you want to line back up and go on the Leviathan, or you, like me, heck no, I'm done for the day. But you got to go on that ride. You got to
Right.
experience it. And
Right.
I find, and I tell my clients the same thing, that are so afraid to open themselves up again. This time around, because you got to, again, hit pause. You always got to hit pause, reflect, learn, and grow, and you'll always be able to stand back up again. Not to say you'll never fall. You'll always be able to stand back up again. I have this painting and this quote that really helped me through the darkest time of my life, and it was, I think it's fall 7 times, stand 8. So that's the same thing about being open again. How can you might get your heart broken maybe 7 times, but then that eighth is going to finally be that love that you've longed for. But how can you find that love? How can you find that love if you don't put yourself out there? And it is scary. And that's where, at the end of the day, you got to love yourself first. And I remember my mom told me this when I was younger, like, you must love yourself first. How can you be with someone when you don't love yourself? And it definitely bears so much truth now, because When you love yourself, no matter what happens, you got you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to, oh, you complete me. Nah, no one completes you.
Mm-hmm.
People compliment you, like
Yeah.
avocado and like guacamole and tacos. It's a compliment. But
Right.
the actual beef or what the main course in the taco, that's you. That's all you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So and you had mentioned, like, like there's cracks. It's a fragile heart. Yes, that's true, but sometimes cracks are so beautiful. Have you ever seen like one of those ancient vases that have been broken and they've been poured with gold?
Mm-hmm.
They are so beautiful. And I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine how it would look like without those cracks
Mm-hmm.
and the gold being filled. It would just be a simple turquoise vase. But with
Mm-hmm.
all these cracks, there's a story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I feel when it comes to the fragility of the heart. And kind of tying in with what I said about a debt and
Mm-hmm.
what you had said, how can you trust again?
Mm-hmm.
You got to close the debt. You got to
Mm-hmm.
reconcile it, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's accepting the payment or forgiving it. Because what's going to happen, and you have mentioned this too, that you had said you've noticed in your current relationship and past relationships, that debt is now carried on to someone's else account that had
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with the original debt, or
Yeah.
you carry that debt. So you got to
Mm-hmm.
figure out that debt. You got to
Yeah.
forgive in order to close that transaction. And it's up to
Mm-hmm.
you how you close it, but it's got to close, because then someone else has to pick up the tab. And it's truly not fair for someone else to pick up the tab. Someone
Yeah.
else should understand, like, oh, okay, this person has gone through this experience, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. But it's no
Mm-hmm.
one's job to pay off someone's debt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not your job to pay off someone's debt.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that answer. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think I have certain friends that are, they're single, and they're of the mind of or that mentality of like, once I find, the perfect partner, then I'll be happy, kind of thing. And it's like, well, no, like, why are you not happy now? I mean, like attracts like. And that's the whole rule of the law of attraction, right? It's like you have to vibrate that energy that you want to attract. But when you're in this state of like lack, then that is what you're putting out into the world. And so that whole thing of like cultivating self-love, which is definitely something that I'm still working on. I struggle with from time to time. But you're absolutely right in that you can't how can you love somebody if you don't even love yourself? Like, it just doesn't happen, right? It's like there's a void that's missing, and no one else can fill that but you, right? Because there's always, I find, and especially in my relationship now, it's like, because I still struggle with self love, I always have, sometimes there's a need for that validation externally, or there's like I said, there's like a void that's missing or whatever. And I have these high expectations that my partner can't sustain or can't fulfill, because it's unrealistic. It's like you're trying to make me feel better about myself by validating me, and like it's like it's all this, it's this given, or it's this take and no give, essentially,
Yeah.
right? So it's definitely something I've struggled with, but I'm still working on. So for my question to you is like, how, I guess, from your own personal experience, and I guess what you prescribe to your clients, how does one cultivate self love? Like, what are some of the tools or the steps that one needs to take in order to, you know, get to that point of truly loving themselves genuinely?
The very first one is always back again to forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first step. You can't love
Mm-hmm.
yourself
Mm-hmm.
until you forgive yourself
Mm-hmm.
and you forgive others. They don't have to
Mm-hmm.
know that you forgive
Mm-hmm.
them. You don't got to call up Bob Dylan and Cole and say, like, like, hey, let's have a chat. They don't need to know,
Yeah.
especially if all them three happen to be assholes, it's just going to stress you out some more. So the first step, you got to forgive. You got to forgive, and most importantly, you got to forgive yourself. Even I still till this day, I'm working on forgiving myself for things that I felt I wasn't my best self. So you got to forgive yourself absolutely first. And then you have to start by taking care of your body, your mind, as in eating healthy. Like that's the first things I always tell my clients. Like before I get into the emotional part of it, let's just tweak your eating first. You are what you eat, right? Let's
Yeah.
tweak your eating, add daily activity. Eating and movement opens up your heart. So now your heart, not only is it open, it's not heavy because step one was forgive. So now your heart's open because of movement. You're feeling great because of the nutrition that you've had. And now this is where self love starts with journaling, mantras, affirmations. And you may think journaling and affirmations, like, some of those activities that I prescribe to my clients, it seems so kindergarten circle time. However, that it was at that moment where you felt most of the time the most loved, the most accepted. It's you want to bring yourself back to being a child, and you are now the person giving yourself those affirmations and those words and mantras that the child version of you, this blank, open heart of you, needs to hear. You can't rely on other people to now fill that. Life has happened, and as you know, the people that needed to fill it for you, whether it be a parent, a partner, they weren't there to give you those words of love. So now you got to give it to yourself. Just like, what is it? The train that could kept telling itself, I think I can, I think I
Yeah.
can. If you tell yourself, if you look in the mirror every day and say, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself, by day 21, you're like, I fucking love myself. Like, you can't help it. You can't
Yeah.
help it because you have wired your brain, your soul, your heart to hear that. But you got to be blank first. And to be blank, you got to close your debts.
I like that. That's very sound advice. Very very sound advice. And yeah, I agree. You pointed out something else in terms of like like going back to the kindergarten, being like a child again. I don't know if you're familiar with Ido Portal. He's like a movement artist. I don't really know what his all his accolades are, but very heavy in the movement culture community. And he was basically saying, he said this quote that has always stuck with me. I didn't understand it at the time, and then after kind of doing more research and doing a deep dive into the whole concept of it, it started to make more sense. But he said, children are closest to the source. And I started to pick up on that when I started to kind of do more research into brain activity, like brain waves. So you have the four major brain wave states. So you have beta, which is your wakeful consciousness. So what we're in right now, we're engaged, we're focusing intently on each other, and then you have below that is the subconscious level, which is alpha, which is kind of like more of a visualization type of state, or where creativity stems from. And then you have excuse me, theta, which is like a dreamlike transcendental state, and then you have delta, which is like deep sleep, right, where your body recovers and everything. So when we're born, we go from delta all the way up to beta. So when you're a fetus in your mom's womb, your brain waves are always going to be in that delta state, right? And this is the deepest level of your unconscious mind. And this is like, from spirituality perspective, this is where all the magic happens, right? Like everything, whether it's our fears or our desires, everything resides in our subconscious mind, right? And so I think that's what he meant by children are closest to the source, because as they're born, they go from delta to theta. They're still in that subconscious way of thinking, and it isn't until the age of, like, after I think 7, where they start to kind of transition. They start to get a better understanding of the outside world, and they go from living internally and more externally, and they go into beta. And then it's like, the the fears and everything like that start to kind of become more subconscious, but they manifest physically and outwardly, right? So it's just interesting how like we have to go back to our brainwave state that we were in when we were kids, because that's the secret to tapping into everything that's,
It is.
governing your life, right?
It is. That child version of you knows nothing but love and wants nothing but love. Every love is all like they give love freely. Like love is free. Love is not earned.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And this might be a very bad example considering the controversy around it at the time, but Michael Jackson, one of his reasons for why he was so drawn to kids was the fact that they were so authentic and they were so pure and they were honest, right? Like
Yep.
whenever an adult complimented him on like his performance or whatever, it almost came off as disingenuous because it was just like, oh, they probably just want something. And a lot of the times that is the case. People have their
Yep.
own ulterior motives. But when a kid says, "Oh man, you were amazing. You blew my," like,
Oh yeah.
they're not like they're kids. Like, what are they like? They're
Kids
not
are
like, oh, like,
honest. Yep.
yeah, they're not there thinking, oh, if I compliment Michael Jackson, then he's gonna give me money, or like he's gonna do this or that or whatever. They're
Yep.
just like, they'll say whatever, like they have no filter, and so
No
it's
filter.
pure, it's honest. And I think we as a society, we're missing that. I mean, there's certain things that you still need to filter. I mean, you don't want to be like, some kids can just be rude as shit, right? But like,
Yep.
you
Yep.
wanna you do want to have a little bit of a filter, obviously, but for the most part, you also want to tap back into that childlike essence, and be pure and genuine in the things that you say and the things that you do for people. So yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, no,
I
kids
like
are
that.
brutally honest. They're like, if you ever want to know the truth about something, if you want to know if your outfit is nice, if you want to know, ask a kid. Ask a kid. They would
Fair,
just
fair.
know, change. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Val, we're coming on the top of the hour, so we're gonna wrap things up in a short little while. But I just wanted to ask you some rapid fire questions. These
All right.
are basically just some like random, like deep rooted questions, but you can give like a simple or a more complex answer. It's totally up to you. But first question is, what is your overall philosophy on life, if you would have to summarize it into like one sentence?
You live once, so fuck it. It is what it is.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
Both.
Or are you kind of both? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, so
yeah,
you
yeah.
can kind of play both ways.
Flow, balance, flow,
Well,
right? It's all about
yeah,
flow,
that's
flow.
very true. That's very true.
Like even
Yeah,
if you are an introvert, you
yeah,
gotta put your you gotta you'll find ways to be an extrovert in your own
I,
way.
I agree. I agree with that. For the most part, I'd say that I'm an introvert, but when I'm with my friends and or I'm with somebody that I'm really comfortable with, I have extroverted tendencies, I'd say.
Yes, I get
Yeah.
ratchet with my family, like really ratchet.
I love it. I love it. Um, what's your favorite book or movie of all time, and why did it speak to you so much?
Oh, that's a hard one. Book, I would say at the top of my head, Untethered Soul.
I love that one.
I really love an Untethered Soul. I try to remind myself to read it yearly, but on top of all the other books, but I
Yeah.
do go back to it. I think it's just simple to the soul, holds no religion. I gotta say that's my favorite book. My favorite movie, ay ay ay. So you know what? It still is Beauty and the Beast.
Interesting. Interesting. Why Beauty and the Beast?
I never quite understood why, but then my life kind of reflected. My life kind of reflected. It's like Belle is the naive empath, and the Beast is like people she's attracting that she's trying to heal. Some of them, I always found myself, I was always attracting the bad boys. And it was always like a project. When really, as life turns out, the beast is just my shadows. Yeah,
Oh.
I just made that up right now.
Oh shit, you went deep with it. Okay, okay,
Dang.
okay. All right, snap, snap. All right, I feel it. I dig it. I dig it. I love it. I
Yeah,
love it.
so yeah. The
Okay,
beast is
okay,
really just
okay.
my own shadows, and I really needed to be with my own shadow, and that beast ended up being that prince that I married, which was myself.
Oh snap. Okay, I see where
Oh,
you're
I
going
just
with it.
rolled off the tongue,
I see. I see where you're going with it. Okay, I like that. I like that. Damn, I'm wonder like I'm trying to wonder where my Disney movie would be
I
now.
know, come
If
on,
like
come
I
on
had like
now.
a yeah.
Come
Oh
on.
man. I well okay. So I've always had a soft spot for the Lion King, just because me and my dad my dad got custody of me right when that movie came out, and that
Yeah.
was the first movie that we watched together, and it was just a perfect movie to bond
Oh,
us and solidify
yes.
our the parent like father son type of bonding kind of thing. So yeah, that's always been like my favorite movie because of that.
Talk about aligned. Like,
Yeah,
no
100%.
lie in there.
Yeah, yeah. Zig, I love it. All right, so the final question
Yeah.
is, in your own words, how would you define love, happiness, and success?
In one word, how would I define?
It doesn't have to be in one word, just
Oh,
in your own
sorry.
words. Yeah, yeah,
Love, happiness, and success.
yeah.
So, love and happiness, ways to describe it. True love and happiness is almost effortless. There's always work, there's always daily work, but it shouldn't feel like you're starting from the ground up all the time. It should feel like love and happiness is already a home that you are just tending to. You're adding little renovations, you're adding things. So it should, true love and happiness should be effortless. So if you feel like you're putting in so much work and you're tired, constantly stressed, then that's not true love and happiness. You're going to have to keep searching for that. You're going to have to make some changes in your life where you're still putting in the work, but you don't need to be pulling a 12-hour shift to make it happen.
Right. I like that.
Success is finding true happiness and love. That's what success is. So, for example, I wouldn't say that I am, I have a home and I drive a nice car and this, I actually live in a high priority neighborhood. I still take the bus, but I deem myself as one of the most successful people because I have found bliss. I have found bliss by finding true love and happiness. And because of that, I feel so bountiful. Like I feel rich. And when you feel rich, you feel successful. Rich doesn't always have to mean money, right? I feel like the richest bitch in the world with, with all the love that I have, with all the connections, like the people that connect with you to me, like every new connection I make, it's like I feel rich. I feel on top of the world, and that's success. So it kind of, it's like an equation, right? If you want true success, find true love and happiness.
Wow. Great answer. Great answer. I love that. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Well, honestly, thank you so much. I know there's so much more that we could talk about. I wanted to try it and not to take up too much of your time.
All
But
good.
before we leave, is there anything like what else do you have on the agenda? Like what's coming up for you? What are you excited about? We have a couple more months until 2021 is over, and then we transition into a new year. So, what do you have going on? What are you looking forward to?
Ooh, so Reiki is doing amazing, and a big part of my mission is to allow high priority neighborhoods to feel open to doing Reiki. So I've been volunteering with two organizations, and I've also just been spreading the word on the street, and people have been coming in. And when I mean people, I mean I want everyone to come in. I don't want people to come in, I don't want just people that have heard of Reiki to come in. I want people even from the hood. Everyone deserves a chance to experience a healing modality. Everyone deserves a chance to give Reiki a try, because as I said, Reiki kind of opens your door to healing. And once that door is open to healing, you could really break some generational curses. And there is no denying that there's a lot of generational curses that need to be broken in high priority neighborhoods. AKA, there's no way for me to sugarcoat it, the ghetto. There's so many cycles that really need to be broken. And if we don't break them, it's just going to continue. And my passion for it is so strong because I do live in, I see it around me. I see the patterns that some mothers, some fathers have carried from their parents. And now, how are we parenting the next generation? We're passing along some trauma. We're passing along some hurt. We are passing along unknowingly the debt that was never closed and forgiven to our children. And then they're like, so that's what's coming up. I got some more events, volunteering. I got some mentees. And from a business standpoint, I'm going to I've noticed whenever I kind of make a themed Reiki session, it helps define your healing path instead of just coming in and saying, I want to do Reiki. So it's like, all right, are we restoring self-love? Have you been cheated on? So I'm kind of going to do little packages where it's like, all right, this is a 3-month package and this is how your healing process is going to go. Are you dealing with grief? I kind of want to turn into a little package. I recently took up Tao healing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll be,
Okay.
and then I'll be a certified crystal healer as well too. And I'm just kind of mash them all in.
So, speaking of crystals, so you're talking about like the pendulum thing, or
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
something completely different?
Like
Yeah.
the pendulum thing, you don't really need to be certified for, but it's
Okay.
more knowing which crystals to use for whatever healing you're looking for and where to place it on your body part. I can mix it in with Reiki, or I could just do the crystal healing on its own, where your body is just in a state of relaxation and you're allowing the vibrations of the crystals to kind of just heal you.
And what's the significance of the crystals in terms, like, I know because there's like different colors, there's different
Hmm.
types of crystals. So like, what are
Yeah.
some of the what are some of the benefits, or the like what's the whole procedure in terms of like what's happening in the body?
So, as I had said, everything is energy. So, certain crystals carry a different frequency, vibration, energy that just helps. Like, we'll go into chakras now, the energy centers. It helps move that energy center, helps block, helps protect, helps uplift, or helps ground. Every crystal has a different kind of purpose. And sometimes if you pick a crystal like clear quartz, for example, it's master healer. It's a very strong crystal. You can, if you really just remove your ego of, okay, is a rock really going to help me? If you just remove that and you actually sit still and breathe slow with a crystal, you can, you literally feel the vibration flowing through your body. So that's what the crystal healing does. Sometimes you need stones that are more grounding. Sometimes you need stones that are protective. Sometimes you need stones that uplift. So that's just I kind of map it out, kind of like acupuncture without the needles. I'm mapping out on your body which crystals are best and where it should go to assist with healing. Again, it's always about opening the doors. I can't heal you. I'm not here. You only heal yourself, but I'm here to help
Yeah.
open the doors.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And do you feel the energy yourself when you're servicing a client, or like, how does that work exactly? Like, is it
With
something
the
that you're
crystals,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, are
some
you
so sometimes when I do the Reiki, I can tell, just as when you had it at the
yeah,
foot, they're like, oh, something's there. So I can
yeah.
kind of feel where I should place a crystal. But when the
Okay.
crystal's on you, it's either I leave the crystals and you're going to be in your own state and you're feeling the vibration if you can feel it, or I'm also doing the crystals and adding Reiki. So,
I see. Okay.
yeah. And sometimes I do feel the crystal kind of, let's just say I put carnelian, which is a red stone, fiery sexuality, creation, and I put that in your sacral. Sometimes before the crystal was there, I already felt a jolt, bolt, like, electricity, I guess you could say. When I put the
Right.
crystal, I feel heat and electricity now. So I do, I am able to feel it sometimes. Sometimes
Right.
when you grab something right away, you won't feel it. It's all
Right.
about, set grounding yourself, and then you can really feel it.
And sorry, I'm gonna let you go soon, but
That's okay.
so when you started doing Reiki, did you were you sensitive to energy right off the bat, or was it something that you kind of had to practice to really hone in and be in tune with the energy that you were feeling? Not just the energy that you were giving off for yourself, but also the energy that your clients were giving off.
I wouldn't say that I was. I wouldn't attach myself to them. I've learned from my experiences how to detach. Like, I used to cling on to people and things. So with life, I've learned, like, it's a you problem, like, and that's okay that it's a you problem. So when I'm with a client, as much as I love you, once you're out that door, it's a you problem now. I've learned that there's nothing rude in saying that. There's nothing wrong with me saying that, because my intentions are always pure. So even if in my mind, I've energetically disconnected from you and I said, all right, that's a you thing now. Um, I don't feel guilty about it. So do I, sorry, ask the question again. Do I
Yeah.
feel
So
drained
have you?
after?
No, like have you always been like kind of receptive to the energy? Like where you? Because I know, for example, like for me, like I've been doing a little bit of qigong too, right? And so I know, like I've now
Yay.
gotten to the point, yeah, where like I can start to sort of feel the energy moving through my body, but it took a while for me to get to that point, and I don't know, it didn't take as long as I thought it would, but I don't know if that's because I'd already kind of been introduced to meditation and I have a pretty good level of body awareness. So like, did you have that same kind of experience, or like initially when you started doing Reiki, were you like, oh, okay, I don't really feel the energy yet, and it was a gradual thing, or was it just instantaneously where
It
you
was
felt it?
instant. It was
Yeah.
instant, and
Okay.
it actually made a lot of sense for me. I didn't understand why I was the way I was when I was a child, why I hated crowds, why I didn't like that person. And I realized later it was the energy. I felt the energy. I felt the vibes. I would walk into a house and I could be far away from the living room and I could tell you if the TV was on or off. Like, I can
Oh
literally,
wow.
and I used to think I was weird or crazy. I'm like, nobody else feels that. Like, I would hear vibrations from a truck hitting the brakes, somewhere else, and it would rattle me. And I'm like, does that not bother anyone else? And I thought
Yeah.
nothing about it. Fast forward, now I'm here. I'm like, oh, that's why I've always been the chosen one. I just never knew
Yeah.
the chosen
That's
one, but I've
awesome.
always been chosen to, you know, be that vessel to
Right.
pass energy
Right.
back and forth. So
Right.
I've always been sensitive to it, yeah.
That's interesting.
But I'm
And
really
maybe
good at
like,
disconnecting.
yeah. And maybe like a lot of the stuff that you've gone through in your life has kind of led you to this point with a purpose, right? Like I believe that everything happens for a reason, and even if it's negative, there's a underlining reason for that happening, and it needs to happen in order for you to transition and evolve to that next state.
I wouldn't change a thing. I would redo it all over again. I was, as hurtful as it was, if someone said I would change it for you, but you wouldn't be where you are right now, I'd say, let's do it again.
Interesting. I love that. I love that. Well, Val, I'd love to talk your ear off some more, but we'll wrap it up here. I'll definitely get you
Awesome.
on again.
Sounds
Maybe we can
good.
go. We can do talk deep dive into the crystals a little bit more. Maybe do a Reiki session or something like that. Whatever.
Hmm.
But is there anything that you want to say to close things off to the audience
Just thank you
listening or
so
watching?
much for you. Thank you so much for having me. And honestly, keep doing what you're doing. Um, I love how vulnerable and open you are, and just continue to be open.
Thank
I
you.
feel that not only does the world need it, but I do feel there is a lack of male presence in being vulnerable and open. And I love that you're so open about it, because then it will encourage someone else to look deep into themselves and be like, you know what? All right, Andrew might be onto something there. And we all need to, at the end of the day, we're all one. We really, really are. We can't have all this, I hate to break it up, female and males, but we can't have all these females walking around healed and, wanting to do better. And then we still have these broken men, because there goes the cycle all over again. So, and I love what you do. I love your flow, your animal, what is it called? Animal flow?
Animal flow, yeah.
Animal flow. I still try it at least once a week, and I always think of you. I really,
Awesome.
really do. And I love the work that you're putting in with the brain waves. Keep up with your humor. And for everyone else out there, you heard a little bit about both of us. We both have come from trauma. We're both working on ourselves, but we're here. We're doing the work. So I encourage whoever's listening, if you feel like you can't do the work and you can't see the light will come. You gotta take the steps.
Awesome, awesome words, and thank you so much for the compliments. And I humbly received that with open arms. And I too share that same sentiment about you. I love what you're doing. I love the energy that you're putting out and the humor. You never fail to make me laugh whenever you're doing your little dance videos of your Reiki and everything. So yeah, definitely keep that up, because it really opens the doors and brings people into the whole realm of Reiki that might be a little bit skeptical about it. And it presents it in a way that is a lot more welcoming, right? Because I know some people can sometimes be a little bit turned off by the a lot of the lingo that is sometimes
Yes.
associated with
Yep.
spirituality and things of that
Yep.
nature. Like I think people are slowly gravitating to it, but there's still kind of a divide. And so I love the way that you present your material, and I
Thank
encourage you
you.
to keep doing it. Keep healing, keep working on yourself, and we will definitely get together again and have
Sounds
a great
good.
conversation. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, and I'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure.
All
Alrighty.
right. All
Bye.
right. Bye.